Hey, I'm Steven.
And I'm Brandon.
And we're independent hairdressers. We started this podcast because there's a movement in our industry.
Hairdressers are embracing independence more than ever. These are the stories of those hairdressers.
We hope you find them inspirational and educational and show you that independence does not mean isolation. You're a part of this revolution, and we're here to support that. In this episode, we speak with Christian Kaufman, an independent hairdresser in Las Vegas. Christian shares with us his attitude toward maximizing the client's experience and your business with a robust retail component. My favorite part is his story of a soul-crushing experience selling wrapping paper as a kid and how it shaped his values, helping him become a retail guru. Okay, perfect. So, Christian, I want to hear... Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you restart just a little bit.
Wait, I'll start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, do.
Well, because Christian inspired me to sell retail.
That's the first story, right?
Yeah.
And then we can find out
story.
why.
True.
Yeah, and when Christian messaged me back and said, I don't think I have a story, Brandon came back and said, yes, he does.
See, that is everyone has a story.
Exactly.
I didn't even know you had a story, but I had a story for you.
Yeah. Why are we
how it starts.
Yeah. Why are we all even here? Why is Christian sitting at the table, and how does that relate?
Yeah. Well, for about 5 or 6 years, I did not sell retail. Why? Because I thought everything was garbage. I really didn't want any company to represent me. I have a brand, and I didn't like what other brands were putting out.
Well, and I think I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times hairdressers maybe don't see that way, that, a lot of times we see hairdressers representing a brand, but not really realizing that they themselves are their own brand, and like who you choose to align with is going to affect your own image or
Totally.
whatever.
Yeah, so I only used one shampoo and conditioner that I recommended, and only to a few people, and that's it. And so I would just, know when they come in and need it, I would have it for them, but it was very rarely that I would even carry anything.
Well, so I'm curious then, because of that, like probably using products on them while you were doing their service, or were you just...
I was using that particular shampoo and a few...
You really hadn't found something you...
I really didn't love anything.
Okay. That makes more sense.
So and I met Christian in the hallway one time, and then he goes, so what do you sell? And I said, I don't sell anything. And he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, I just don't do the retail thing. And he kind of was getting after me.
Good work.
Then he said, because my clients, I love giving them the best of whatever. And, at that moment, I didn't have a best.
Right.
So he then told me, I make $4,000 a month selling retail, which my jaw dropped, and it really got my gears turning, but not really for the money, but it kind of directed me into what I was neglecting my clients. I wasn't giving them things. I was always saying, why don't you go to Ulta and get this or this? Yeah, I've heard about this thing. Ulta probably has it.
Try that out.
Yeah, you can probably get it on Amazon. So, now I sell a lot of retail.
That's awesome.
So I have amazing brushes, and, I sell Hair Story and all sorts of things. And I love it. And my clients love it, and they appreciate it, and their hair is better.
And $4,000 a month wouldn't be bad either.
Yeah, and that's not
turn
bad.
It down.
I definitely I get rewarded for it monetarily. It's fine.
And it's nice. You're being rewarded for something you believe in. You don't feel like you don't even feel like you're necessarily like selling. I always get that from hairdressers. Like, I'm not a salesperson. It's
maybe that's what it was. That's why I wasn't selling something that I didn't believe in. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think it's just that maybe people's perception of what selling is that like used car salesman or something that's trying to sell something that serves their own self-interest, not the consumer's interest, And so when you can bring it together where you're serving their best interest, that, and it's nice that you also benefit from that. I mean... Yeah.
So, Christian, how does one sell $4,000 of retail in a month?
Very carefully. No. I came from a really big salon, and we were always pressured to sell. I had no problem selling. I kind of noticed everybody around me. It was always a problem to sell things. And my thinking is a little different. You just educate people. So you need to understand what you're using. And in our line of work, it's our job. Hair is fabric, and it's like clothing. Are you going to go out and buy some nice clothing and then throw it in the washing machine? Right. You're not going to do it. So you need to figure out how to make it do what you want it to, and then educate your clients.
Right.
So if someone comes in with dry hair, you don't ask them like, oh, do you want to have hydrated hair? You tell them, hey, you know what? Your hair's really dry. What are you using? What are you doing? It's my job to figure out and troubleshoot what's going on for them. That's why they're coming to me. And it's shifting that thinking, because it's not just giving somebody a haircut or a blowout or a great color. That's our technical part.
Sure.
And then the rest of it is how to care for it.
Right.
You're going to invest all this money. It needs to last. So you need to understand that. So it's just educating people. So whether it's shampoo or a styling product, figuring out what they're using at home. And it's not all about spending money. It's figuring out where you can adjust something that they're already doing and make it even better. So if they have a budget, you work with them on that. And there's lots of old wives' tales out there, like, oh, the shampoo doesn't matter. It's really the conditioner. And, oh, this makes your hair fade, or that does. And it's just learning to educate people correctly on things.
Right.
You can put any magic thing on your hair, and when you break it down to it, water is going to make your hair color fade.
Sure.
There's certain things you can't do. So it's just about educating people. And where I'm at, it's not just hair. Like anything that has remotely anything to do with beauty is something that I'm going to tell people about, even health.
Right.
So it's not just selling hair products. It's all kinds of things, supplements, that help their hair grow, all kinds of things. So it's just educating people, and leaving the previous salon that I was at really opened up my eyes, because they really push a lot of stuff. Companies constantly come out with new things, discontinue old products that are wonderful, come out with new stuff, make you buy them, huge overhead. And then you're pushing all your employees to buy stuff. Not really cool. And so leaving that, and the whole thing too on having an assistant and pushing people through like cattle in order to make a lot of money, that's not me. I want to offer great service.
Right.
Selling retail helps me spend more time with one person than with 5.
And I think it has such a good point to bring up, because I think that is generally the mindset of how do you do better, do more as a hairdresser. It's usually just do more people.
Yeah.
Charge as much as you can and do as many as you can. And even the problem there is like, maybe you can do one more person per day. Eventually you won't, like that's as much as you can do. Maybe you can raise your prices, but at some point, even that hairdresser that's doing 20 people in a day and charging a ton of money, like they still are going to hit their own cap, because of, there's 24 hours in a day and, only so much you're charging. Whereas there's not really, other than maybe their budget, like you spoke about, there's not really anything, there's no limiter on what they would purchase, because they're purchasing all these products somewhere.
Oh yeah, the average person uses 11 products on themselves outside of makeup every day.
Wow, outside of makeup even.
So that's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
We should be recommending.
Well, and that's what's crazy. Like, I mean, why would they? I mean, they're already coming to you for this sort of help. I mean, it's kind of crazy that they would go to Ulta or I don't know, or Walgreens to get some skincare, and with someone that's behind the counter just as, a retail employee, but you like actually have legitimate training and experience in this world. So, I mean, it kind of makes you the perfect person to be selling it.
Absolutely.
All of
and
it.
I think a lot of it is how we posture ourselves, because most hairstylists don't think about that. Even body wash, talking to someone about that. It's just like shampoo on your head. You have skin all over.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that, and making sure people have the right thing.
I'm curious, like, what's the process? Because if you're talking about all of these different things, what's the flow of that conversation? Like, so for me as a hairdresser, it's always been very easy when I'm washing their hair. So I'm talking about, a cleanser during that process. When would you bring up like a body wash? Because it's not like you're going to be washing their body. So like, what gives you that opening? Like,
oh, it's easy. You just look and see. So you're always looking at them, even when you do your consultation. You're trying to figure out, is this haircut actually going to fit their personality that you see? Their image. Are you going to give them a crazy haircut and it's, a highly religious woman with a collar up to her chin and, everything covered? No, that's not really going to fit her. But you look at their arms, their skin, their neck, all kinds of stuff, their face. So it just kind of comes in, and usually people say some type of statement and they're the ones asking. So they're going to tell me about a problem. I have a solution. It's as simple as that. People have hair problems. It's our job to fix that.
Right.
It's the same with everything else. They're going to talk about different skin issues, all kinds of stuff, family skin issues. And you just say, hey, you know what?
Issues.
Family issues, yes. And, you can sell them narcotics. No, but people all want to know what's good. And they're coming to you and they trust you already. Mm-hmm. So I think it depends on how it is. If I'm trying to sell them whatever, then it's not going to work if they don't have a problem.
Yeah.
So it's just finding the solution.
Right.
So you have a strong confidence already that this person trusts me.
Oh, yeah, it's my job to build. I mean, I sell myself. We all do.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Like when hairstylists say they don't sell anything, baloney. You're selling yourself every minute.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us don't probably realize that.
No. Most people don't.
We ourselves aren't sold
Sometimes
to ourselves.
That's
That's
true,
probably
sometimes.
what's going on.
Yeah, it could be a confidence thing.
Fake it until you make it.
So with a let's say it's a new client you've never met before. Obviously, there is going to be some level of confidence already because most of our business is through referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to approach your interactions with a new client different than the one that you've been seeing for 10 years and all that? Like,
I'm going to ask different questions, and I try and always ask the right questions for what's going on, but I want to know what they're using, what they're doing with their hair at home, what their lifestyle is like, the amount of time they're spending on things, like all the things that you should be asking to get that info,
So in a way, I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, there's almost a even greater opportunity with that first time client because it's understandable why you'd be probing because it's like, hey, this is the first time we've met. I need to learn. So, I mean, even greater opportunity to start off on the right foot because maybe you start with that first client. You don't do that the first visit. And then you're like, oh, you know what? I did not do enough that first visit. Then the next one, they're like, I almost think you need to set the precedent the first time you meet them.
That's how I thought. And I used to get really mad at myself when I wouldn't do that. And then I had a little aha moment where I realized, wait a minute, we have this opportunity with every client, no matter how they're coming in.
Okay.
Or how often they come back in and they've been a long-standing client and you say, hey, you know what? I've been treating you poorly this whole entire time. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I love you. And you just say, you know what? I haven't been asking you certain questions that are important. And you just go over it with them. They love it.
Yeah, that's what I realized when I've been neglecting my clients in that way, that I haven't, cared for them.
Yeah.
In that way. And it is a service.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it as a service because you identify it with the used car salesman.
Right. Wow.
And if you take that idea of solving their problem, all of that goes away. And the choice is theirs. They can be like, oh yeah, I need that or no. And it may take a year.
Right.
Sampling's great. The hair story I love because you're going to put it on them. They're going to feel it. You ask them, how does your scalp feel? Oh, it's not itchy anymore.
Yeah.
This is great. All that stuff.
I thank you both because I think you both just helped retrain my thoughts a little bit, feeling that I had hit a wall with these people I've been seeing for 10 years. I love that approach, like talking about like, hey, I kind of feel like I have been doing a disservice to you. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, people like it because you take responsibility. You're letting them know you're changing things, and you're also holding yourself accountable. Because the next time they come in and you don't do it, they know.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, that's amazing.
It's a new way to look at it.
That's really good. I just wanted to hear a little bit about your journey from, I'm curious how you got into doing hair. You spoke a little bit how you came from a sales background before doing hair, even as a young child. So can you maybe give us a quick little, recap of that? And then I am very interested, which you haven't heard yet, is then where the hair part came in.
So we were talking earlier, and I didn't even realize I've been selling things since I was a kid. I don't know if any of you remember, but you used to be able to sell wrapping paper and gift things, Christmas ornaments, stuff like that. They would come out in the schools and you'd get a little magazine. They'd have all these prizes in the back that you could win. I started doing that at about 8 years old. And the first year I went around, and I hate even admitting this.
And you're being recorded.
This is about transparency.
There you go.
Only 3 people will listen to this, don't worry.
Unless they go back in the archives 10 years from now.
But I went around and sold a bunch of stuff because, who's not going to buy something from a little 8-year-old who's
Good point.
showing them that they're a little mini businessman.
It's adorable.
But I collected all this money and all this stuff, and I never turned it in. And
Embezzlement.
totally embezzled money. And I went around again the next year, and I remember one lady said, I would really like to purchase this from you, but I did this last year, and I never got my products. And I was devastated, and I totally understand why she did it. You know, she was teaching me a lesson, and I came back that following year with what she needed, what she had ordered from the year before.
Oh, wow.
Used my own money to pay for it. And from that point on, I was like, wow, you have to be accountable for that. People call you out.
That is, I don't think people get the opportunity to learn that lesson at that age sometimes.
No, and I still remember her, like, completely.
That's very powerful.
It was big. So that's kind of how the sales thing started. And then I got into sales at the end of high school. Started retail selling shoes.
Okay.
And sold expensive shoes, and it was very difficult. So that was where I learned a lot about knowing a product inside and out. And when you have to have old men with bad feet come up to you and you have to make them comfortable, that was the thing. So I started learning about the product and how shoes wear and what goes into it, and just kind of understanding. So I think that was where it all started.
In shoe sales, was it a commission-based
Yes.
job too?
Yeah.
So there's like some direct connection to your
completely.
efforts and all
the store. And then I moved up. I had that job right before I started hair school, and actually became assistant manager before I was even 18, which was something that they didn't normally do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want 0.5% of the store volume. Heck yeah. I got to teach everyone how to do this.
So they kind of had an additional incentive by being a manager.
Definitely.
Oh, that's cool.
Not want a 17-year-old over me.
No, most people didn't, but it was a small store.
Yeah. There you go.
It was cool.
Wow. So how were you introduced to doing hair?
I started coloring hair when I was a kid.
Okay.
I would take Kool-Aid and make a paste and paint it on my blonde friends.
I love it.
So I was always into that. I was cutting kids' hair in school and kindergarten. I remember we had this room with tricycles, and I would lock 3 kids in there, and I would cut their hair with those Crayola scissors that you're not supposed to cut anything with other than paper. If you hold it at the right angle, you could cut hair with it.
Sure.
And people always told me that I was going to be a hairstylist. Yeah. And I was like, no way. Because all I was exposed to was like Supercuts and Fantastic Sam's. Like that was it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And then when I got out of school, I had a really close friend. Her mom was a hairstylist, and she made a great living.
Yeah.
And she was awesome. And she always inspired me. And she was like, you know what? You could pay for college if you go to hair school.
Yeah.
And she told me she would hire me as her assistant. And I did college for a year and then went back and was like, I need to go to hair school.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to do skincare first, not even hair. So
did you get an aesthetics training or
I
went
for my cosmetology license, and I spent a lot of time in the aesthetics department. But they told me men couldn't make money doing skin.
Really?
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Little did they know who they were talking to.
Yeah, exactly. Such a sharp contrast to like hairdressing. So it's fascinating to hear that you were discouraged as a man to do skin, like that would be flip-flopped or something like that. Which I think it probably goes to safely say it doesn't matter, as we all knew.
Well, there are certain things, like sometimes clients, when they're coming in for a skin treatment and they're a first-time person who maybe not realize I'm a guy, come in and they're a little shocked at first. And so I have to make them more comfortable. But I can tell through their body language they're super scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's okay, you're going to be covered. You have a wrap.
Yeah.
You're going to be under sheets and blankets.
Yeah.
Like, it's all good. After a few minutes, they're just like, okay, do
you think it's the exposure quality or that the relatability? Like, how could you relate to my skin issues, or is it just simply?
I think it's just them being uncomfortable at first, and then I just make them feel comfortable. And
I suppose that probably might be similar in massage therapy.
Yeah,
that'd be right.
I think that would be the same.
Yeah, I could see that. Huh. That's amazing. So revisit the hair part a little bit. So you're working in a really big salon with a big retail push, and that wasn't a good, like there was...
Oh, no. I loved selling things. Had no problem.
Yeah.
I would win contests, do all kinds of stuff. But there was a lot of pressure on making sure you have an assistant and how many people you're doing. And that just made me kind of feel like I was losing my business. Like what Brandon was talking about, his brand.
Yeah.
My brand was going away.
Yeah.
And it was becoming the salon brand. And that wasn't flying with me. So I kind of every class I would go to on business and things like that, they teach you how to maximize your time and do more, but they're leaving out that whole human element. You know, there aren't many professions where you can actually touch people, and that's important to me. And I think that makes a world of difference. You know, sometimes people come in and that's the only physical touch they get all month long.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of a gift that we have. So I wanted to spend more time with my clients. I had to adjust my pricing a little bit to make up for that, but it's nothing crazy. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, if I can offer all these things to one person, instead of trying to find 4 people to fill their place, it's 1. So I can actually see less people every week and maximize things. I like to do about 15 people a week. That's my goal.
That's fantastic.
So it works out really well, and clients love it. And that's what separates you.
I think that's such an inspiring thing for this podcast, because as I meet and talk to hairdressers all the time, they're always talking about how busy they are and just how little time they have. And to hear that your success, 15 clients a week, that sounds like a really nice life.
It is nice. And it's not always that way. I mean, the other day I had 13 people in one day, so that's a little crazy. Exactly. But it changes a lot. You know, it's hard on our body to stand there. I mean, average days on a lot of people are 12 to 16 hours. That's a lot.
Maybe this stands out to me is that you actually have some specific goals in mind. That you're like, you know, what would be ideal? You know, I would like to do 15 people a week. In order to have the level of success I want to have, this is kind of what I would need to do with each one of those people. Like, I don't even know if a lot of hairdressers plan it out that much and think of it that way.
I don't think people do. I don't think a lot of people know their average service ticket, and that's a big one. You need to know what your average is, and it needs to be an honest average.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big
point.
thing. And then you look at that and you figure, okay, if your average ticket's $200 or $75, whatever it is, and whatever you need to make, and you set that up.
Yeah.
You set your hours up. You pre-book your clients, you know. And the other thing that I feel is really important, I know a lot of people, they'll book their client, say, 7 weeks for a highlight, 4 weeks for a haircut. If you match all that stuff up together, you have more time for people, because then that person's only coming in your book once, you know, in that time period, rather than 3 times for different services.
So you would say that it's better to do everything together, because this is interesting to me, that it seems like there might be a philosophy in sales that the more frequent you could see somebody, that would be a benefit, as opposed to, I think what you're suggesting is like actually try to make it so their haircut and their color is at the same time, so maybe their frequency is actually less, like they're coming in less frequently but for longer stretches of time.
Quantity than quality.
Yeah,
right?
it just kind of depends on how you're doing it. You know, if some people go 3 root touch-ups between a highlight, you know, adjusting that a little more. And color trends change that too.
Adjusting it which way?
I would do more, like have them come in more frequently.
Okay.
You know, but gotcha. I built my business off of hair color, just because people will no-show for a haircut. People will not no-show for their roots.
That's a good point. There's a compulsory element to that.
You know, so that was something. And when I was building my business, I only accepted, once I got to a certain point and I knew how I wanted things to happen, I would only take people who would get a haircut highlight color. So I wouldn't book just haircuts, wouldn't piecemeal it out at all.
Yeah.
And I did that for several years to build a strong clientele.
Nice. Brilliant. This is gold.
Well, I think the underlying theme of all of this is you're really maximizing everything.
I'm trying to, yes.
You're maximizing your space by offering numerous services. He's maximizing his retail by offering, you know, everything from nutrition to skin to hair. You're maximizing your time. I mean, everything is maximized.
And there's a plan to it. It's not haphazard, which I think sometimes I know, even myself and lots of hairdressers, like, that's not our strength a lot of times. I don't want to speak for everyone, because clearly it's not all hairdressers. But I appreciate that.
You definitely have to love what you do. You know, and when I hear people, like the other day I had a conversation with a girl. She hates blow drying. I used to hate blow drying. 90% of the time I hate it. But I turn it into a game, and I'm like, how can I make this fun? And typically when we don't like something, it's because we're not good at it, or we don't feel we are. So you have to get yourself good at it.
Yeah.
You know, kind of shifting that perception. But we have an awesome career, and you can have so many facets of it. Right. You know, you can specialize with color, you can specialize in cutting, styling, you know. texturing treatments, all kinds of stuff. This is our career, our business. We can change it however we want and make it different.
And I think there's very few careers where you could do that. Like, I can't think of anything where there's as much flexibility. Let's take a little cheese break.
Sounds great. Awesome. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we loved making it. For more information about us, our guest, or anything else you heard today, please go to detergentinsurgents.com.